So this is kind of a quick video about infrared filters. No, about infrared. This is just to put together a quick video about my infrared experience recently, and it's kind of a tale of two filters, really. I've bought. The reason this is kind of an update is that I have bought an IR chrome filter, most expensive filter I've ever bought, and I got it because I wanted to try some colour infrared stuff. So along with that filter I put this one, which is a variable filter, and it runs from 530 to 750 nanometers, and that's for my kind of, this is the filter I use just for my standard kind of black and white infrared stuff that I do. And I decided to take both filters to Farnborough with me, and because it was forecast to be quite sunny, it turned out to be very sunny and very hot, which was both, a bit of a challenge as the day wore on. But I had the time between about 11 in the morning and about 3 in the afternoon to do some photography, so it was in the hottest part of the day, really, and it went pretty well, I think. I started off at Farnborough Airport, looking around some of the historic buildings there, and some of them are painted in very light colours, and they are super bright in the sunshine, which is, it's just a bit of you just have to be careful what you're doing in terms of exposure and the like. Lends itself, I think the whole scene there kind of lends itself very well to infrared photography. So one thing that was a little bit of a kind of a nuisance is, of course, I was using my Olympus E-PL2, and because I stuck with the 15mm Panasonic-Leica lens, I was kind of continually doing this to change lenses and change filters rather than changing lenses. So that kind of, because I was doing wanted to do some comparative stuff to kind of see, does it render as well in infrared colour as it does in infrared black and white? So there was quite a lot of filter changing going on, which is a bit, just a bit of a hassle. It's just one of those things, really. So after looking around the historic buildings at Farnborough Airport, I walked down to the portable airship hangar, which is quite a structure. I think it was constructed around 1912 or 1913, and it had a kind of a canvas over the top of it at some point when it was actually in use. It's just this massive, really weird metal structure. It's quite a thing, and to be honest, with the historic buildings there and the hangar, I could spend all day just there alone, really. It's there's a lot going on. After that, I walked down to the Civic Quarter regeneration area in Farnborough, which is kind of it's an area in transition between, it was probably 1960s buildings and stuff in Farnborough there, and it's being knocked down and rebuilt. And that includes the car park, which is part way through being demolished at the moment. So that was, I enjoyed having a look there. Some of the footpaths actually go through kind of the edge of the demolition area, so you can walk around it up quite close to what's going on there. So that was good. Having now processed some of the images through Darktable, I find that the general process for both the black and white images and the colour images is actually not that different. The most significant difference is that with the colour images, the white balance is completely different. So this camera I set some time ago. I set the white balance to something that I like, with using roughly 720 nanometers, which is roughly what I always use this variable filter on. I do vary it occasionally depending on the scene and what's in the scene, but I most often use it around 720 nanometers, and I set the white balance for this camera specifically for that wavelength, and I haven't changed that. So when I imported the raw files for the color images, I've set the white balance comes out at something like 3,500 Kelvin or something, which is where it's set in the camera. And for the color images, it seems to be best with the white balance set up around 18 to 20,000 Kelvin, somewhere up there. So it's radically different. But other than that, it's really very similar process for both types of images. And that's just adjustments to exposure and contrast and things like that, and that's kind of where it's got to. So let's take a look through a few of these examples. So Samuel Cody, famous figure at Farnborough, and his statue is outside the gates of the Fast Museum, and you can see here that the black and white, the standard kind of, what I would call the standard black and white infrared version, 720 nanometers. I think that's good. I'm quite happy with that. And if we look at the IR Chrome version, to be honest, it's hardly different from a standard colour version that you could have manipulated just slightly to get a slightly different hue in the sky. So yeah, I mean, that's okay, it's fine, nothing wrong with that. I'm happy with both. I'm not sure that one's better than the other particularly. If we have a look also at this image of this viewpoint of the Aviator Hotel, you've got the standard kind of infrared 720 nanometers view, and then there's the IR Chrome type look. And again, you know, there's not much to choose between them, to be honest. I think they're both okay in their own right. What's interesting is that if you take that IR Chrome version and you do a monochrome conversion on that in Darktable, you end up with this, which actually looks pretty much like a standard black and white, no infrared image. So as I walked down through Farnborough towards the airport initially, there's some interesting infrastructure, and some of it in this light looks pretty good. And the first set of buildings you walk into are the wind tunnel, the historic wind tunnel buildings. And first of all, it's this set of buildings called the Small Wind Tunnel, and they're just, as you can see from this set of images, they're just a really kind of they're just interesting buildings. I think they're you can book tours, I believe. So I've never been inside any of these buildings, but I've kind of looked through the windows, and I think you can book tours of this area to get more of the history. So I will think about doing that at some point. But they're very, they're just a kind of an architecture all of their own. So they're pretty interesting, and so I took a number of standard 720 nanometer images and also some of the IR Chrome images as well. And next, kind of just across the road, is the large wind tunnel, and that's one very large building. So this is a standard colour picture with the Canon M6, and then some 720 nanometers infrared black and white images. And then it leads into, or next to it, is the seaplane testing area, seaplane testing building, which it just has these long kind of runway into it. It's not a big building, and it does have or did have a kind of a water bath inside it for testing seaplanes. And from there you can walk down through kind of the centre of the area towards the hangar, and that's the portable airship hangar. And again, here it's quite a nice place to just come and kind of sit and chill out for a while. And because the clouds were so good on this particular day for infrared, I spent a bit of time just sitting there and looking around and just snapping a few images before walking back through the centre, taking a few more images as I went, and then on to Farnborough, where the demolition work's taking place on the central car park. And there is kind of pedestrian access around the edges, so you can see all what's going on, and there's some signposted routes and things. And that then leads into the kind of the centre, Kingsmead, Queensmead, or the Meads as I think they call them, where again I took a few kind of comparison images just to see which would work out best. And I think in some instances it's clear that the IR chrome, particularly on this the image of this staircase, I prefer the IR chrome version, but either are probably acceptable. And again, just walking around the edge of the demolition area before I headed back off towards North Camp, and I got my first taste of flare here when I was taking a picture of the college buildings. And obviously that's always something that you really, really have to look out for on infrared, because it is very prone to flare. And then I took a couple of standard-ish kind of images just around North Camp, and ended up with some super contrasty building pictures in the street. Quite pleased with that as a day wandering around, or a few hours wandering around in Farnborough. I'm really pleased with the colour filter. Was it worth the outlay? I'm not entirely convinced about that, to be honest. That was a lot of money for a filter. I have also, as well as that IR chrome, which I spent quite a lot of money on, I think I also, which was, I guess it's questionable, but if you want to really delve into colour, you probably need something like that. And it is quite effective, and it doesn't require a lot of different kind of processing afterwards. I did also buy a UV cut filter, so I can also use my full spectrum camera now as a normal light camera by putting the UV cut filter on the front. So I can just take one camera with me now sometimes if I go out to do infrared photography, which is nice. And that filter, the UV cut, I think cost about £8, so that was nothing, relatively speaking. And I think that'll be a worthwhile addition to the filter arsenal. So that's where we are so far with the infrared journey.